Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Laura Paul, Global Financial Services Industry Lead for Appian. And I am joined by my colleague, Lizzie Rubenfield, who is Senior Product Manager for Appian, and then also our friends from Alpha FMC. Alpha is our industry experts who consult to asset and wealth management firms globally. So we've got Sam Iles, who's Director Distribution Practice in North America, and Matt Harris, Associate Director in Wealth Management Client Segment, North America. We've got some really great content to share with you all today, really around the complexities of managing Know Your Customer, so KYC, and the importance of that across the customer lifecycle and customer journey. And the importance really of effectively orchestrating people, process, and data so that you gain efficiencies across that process and then also take friction out of the customer experience. So, and these, of course, are challenges a lot of firms are facing these days. We hear about this all the time and have these discussions quite a bit. So Matt and Sam are going to share with you some valuable insights on challenges that they're seeing in the industry, and then also industry best practices. And Lizzie's going to take you through a preview of Appian's connected KYC solution, which is soon to launch. It's going to be GA, I believe it's May 14th. And that connected KYC is part of Appian's customer lifecycle suite of offerings, including connected onboarding, connected servicing, and now connected KYC, which of course is a very important part of that whole customer lifecycle journey. So before I pass it over to the team, I'd just like to invite you all, please stop by the Solutions Hub. We'd love to take you through the solution in more detail. You know, we're going to give you a preview of it up here, but we don't have time to do a deep dive. We'd love to answer any questions that you have and show you all the capabilities. And then I'd also invite you to reach out to me, reach out to your account executive. We'd love to talk with you about some of your unique business challenges in KYC and the broader customer journey and how Appian can help. So with that, please welcome Matt.
Thank you, Laura. It is great to see so many familiar faces today with us in the audience, including those that we've only known virtually for the last 2 years. We're very excited to be with you all here in person today and want to thank Appian for giving Sam and I this opportunity to speak on a topic that is really front of mind for so many of our clients at the moment. By way of introduction, my name is Matt Harris. I'm an Associate Director with Alpha Financial Markets Consulting, where I help to lead our wealth management offering here in North America. For those of you that have not heard of Alpha FMC, we're a boutique management consultancy that is solely dedicated to the asset and wealth management industry. We have a team of over 650 consultants globally, with offices across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific, and work with about 95% of the top 20 investment managers globally by AUM, as well as managers of all shapes and sizes on some of the most complex problems facing the industry today. While Alpha's client scope is limited to just the buy-side investment management space, within that space we support our clients with programs across the end-to-end value chain, such as front office portfolio management, operations, distribution, risk and regulatory compliance, and everything in between. From a delivery perspective, Alpha is unique as a consultancy in that we support our clients with all phases of the change management lifecycle, from strategic advisory and operating model definition through to vendor selection and ultimately implementation. With continued margin compression forcing investment managers to look inward for innovative ways to increase efficiencies while also continuing to add scale to their operations, it is in the client lifecycle management space where we continue to see more and more firms assess and ultimately select solutions such as Appian to automate and add efficiency in the ways in which they approach and integrate processes across client onboarding, ongoing client servicing, and KYC and ongoing customer due diligence. As Laura alluded to, addressing friction within the client lifecycle is a problem that is becoming increasingly important across the industry, particularly as managers enter new geographies and continue to bring new and increasingly complex products to market. Transitioning clients from onboarding, inclusive of KYC and customer due diligence, through to ongoing client servicing, as well as the associated periodic AML review processes associated, has traditionally involved the transfer of client information and data between multiple different teams and platforms within an organization. The lack of interconnectivity between these operating platforms has resulted in the creation of disparate data silos within an investment management organization, each addressing differing views of the same client and each fit for their own unique purpose. The way in which a sales and marketing team view a given client often differs when compared to the level of granularity required for a client service organization to meet their ongoing service obligations, which can be similar but also different from the view an AML operations team requires to perform necessary KYC activities, such as determining an ultimate beneficial owner or running sanction screening. This inability to harmonize the client lifecycle has traditionally resulted in firms continuing to throw bodies at the problem, breeding even further inefficiencies across the operating model and leading to longer lead times for account funding, as well as increased operational risk and an overall negative client experience. The industry is currently facing an inflection point in this space where innovation and automation are no longer a means of achieving a competitive advantage, but rather a requirement to maintain parity with the competition. Leading firms in this space are addressing these challenges by taking a two-step approach to focus on first, sorting out and linking the various components of their underlying client data model, and second, implementing automation and standardization across their processes through the use of an industry-leading platform like Appian. For firms that have made the strategic decision to tackle these challenges, they're able to successfully integrate their onboarding, ongoing servicing, and AML KYC operations into a seemingly singular client service experience, enhancing efficiency across the client lifecycle, reducing the operational risk embedded within their AML and periodic KYC review processes, and increasing overall client satisfaction and ultimately retention. Now I'll pass over to my colleague Sam Iles from Alpha FMC, who will dive a little bit deeper into how some of our clients are tackling these specific challenges today.
Thank you, Matt. And I think obviously nothing says excitement like AML and KYC. So it's great to see so many of you here, especially after the party last night. The good news is the lights are quite bright, so I won't be able to see if you take a nap. But if you don't want to do that, I guess the question that I pose is potentially, what if just AML and KYC could potentially change the world? And we'll come back to that at the end. My name is Sam Iles. I lead up Alpha's distribution practice in North America. So I do work with investment management clients across sales, marketing, client service, and client operations. As Matt said, I think a number of the challenges that we see in this space really evolve around the need to connect the end-to-end client experience from start to finish. Attempting to standardize that process is a challenge that many clients are facing. And I think we are seeing the industry be able to do that more and more. And what that allows for is increasing transparency around monitoring of task status and then more rapid identification of risks and issues through the onboarding process, leading to ultimately lower operational risk, not only within the onboarding process itself, but also in committing to offer and deliver certain service requirements that you then struggle to actually deliver whilst the client is in that servicing phase of the life cycle that Matt just showed on the screen. Additionally, kind of streamlining that handoff from the sales process into the onboarding process is a core focus. And then again, handing off into the servicing part of the life cycle is really important and can yield a number of client experience benefits if you're able to do that properly. The core component to achieve that typically is around being able to enhance the capturing of data and document management, ensuring that the highest quality data is captured and mastered appropriately through the process and codified ideally in a centralized repository that you can then start to actually manage and track against as you go and service that client. And in order to achieve that, we're seeing a number of clients implement enterprise-wide client masters, obligations masters, and service catalogs to provide a single comprehensive view of data across the organization with tasks and data that's actionable and reportable, and that attempt to really standardize the service offering for certain client segments and tiers. And obviously, a connected workflow platform is integral to that and can be used to streamline the capturing of that data as the onboarding progresses to reduce the manual data maintenance and governance burdens that you have in order to connect the various parts of the life cycle. And they're doing that on top of robust data management applications such as MDM solutions and enterprise data platforms to complete the data management part of that. Now to AML and KYC more specifically, I think it's probably no surprise to people in the room that increasing and in some cases diverging regulations across the globe are increasing the cost and the burden of compliance and limiting the ability of investment managers to scale. This being combined with the typical inefficiency in the AML and KYC process that many asset and wealth managers have struggled with, mean that as the business continues to grow, as those regulations continue to evolve, it's hard to keep pace with that without significant team increases and/or increasing the level of operational risk. To bring this to life, one client that I was speaking to recently noted that around a third of their time across compliance, operational, deal sales teams was spent just kind of conducting and chasing the AML and KYC parts of the process, back and forth across various internal teams, clients, external, internal counsel, fund accounting, so on and so forth, is a bit of a minefield. And in our latest annual benchmark study that we carried out, we surveyed about 40 plus managers with a total of about 13 trillion in AUM, and found that areas such as AML, KYC are ripe for sort of efficiency gains of around 40 to 50%, just in reducing the level of manual overhead, tracking, monitoring, and collection of data. And automating checks using a level of kind of codified rules that mean that that process can be much more efficient. And so what that would mean is you could probably meet the most ambitious growth objectives just through enhancements to that process alone without the need to grow resources, teams, or increase operational risk. And on average, globally, that would kind of bring the average time to conduct KYC from end to end from around kind of 20 to 25 days to around 10 to 15. And if you compound that by the number of checks you complete annually, that's obviously a pretty significant saving. But how do you do that right? How does this become not just a pipe dream? I think it all begins in looking to understand your current state, understand the various permutations of that current state across the globe, and then try to determine how that varies by client type and geography. Once that's complete, I think typically you can identify areas of legitimate divergence, right? Where does that legitimately diverge for different client types, geographies, for example, but also a number of prime opportunities to help align and standardize the experience across the globe. And then once you do that, right, you're right to get into potential implementation of a process automation tool like Appian's Connected Suite, which can assist in scaling those AML and KYC process by automating those critical workflows, OFAC sanctions lists, suspicious activity reporting, et cetera, that Lizzie will highlight a little more in a moment. And stitching together those tasks across the enterprise can really help to standardize the data capture at each point in that process, and also increase visibility of the process to monitor and defend SLAs and KPIs across the organization. Codified rules against mastered sanctions lists and OFAC lists, et cetera, can also help to reduce that level of operational risk. The number of places I see that those data sets are being maintained in spreadsheets or Word documents in shared drives, et cetera, rather than being actual codified things that can be automated is significant. So I think there's a bit there to do in terms of making sure that that's robust and you can kind of report around that data. You can try and streamline and automate the checking process rather than relying on updating shared drives and so on. And additionally, the incorporation of client portals in the AML and KYC process can standardize and that capturing of documents and information from clients and their partners, and also help to enhance the client experience. And again, in the benchmark that I mentioned earlier, about 2/3 of clients are thinking of or have implemented such solutions in order to automate the AML and KYC process and enhance that client experience via the use of a portal. And then as that data is captured through that process, right, you are streamlining that data management, that capturing process, that mastering process, and making that data then easily available during the servicing part of the life cycle. And such efforts are already increasing rewards across the life cycle, so reducing inefficiency and increasing visibility into the end-to-end process, streamlining the quality of data that's captured, automating checks, so reducing that level of operational risk and making sure those checks are based on accurate, up-to-date lists, and authoritative sources, updated policies, procedures, and so on, and also enhancing the end-to-end client experience. And that can be made possible through mapping out the current processes, identifying those opportunities to standardize, investing in your data architecture to support robust mastering and governance of that data, and then stitching together the end-to-end process to streamline task execution and automate certain activities like the OFAC checks, etc., and tying that process into applications that business users across the organization already use, CRM, Outlook, so on and so forth. Roll that out in an agile way, so design big, design up front, but then pick off manageable chunks to roll out in increments, and prioritize change management as you go through that experience, which is often the most critical and challenging part. Dare I say that the technology itself is the easy bit. Such achievements are not just a pipe dream and instead are becoming foundational and vital to modern operations. And such efficiency that we gain through that may help us acknowledge that KYC is not just an operational burden, but potentially a strategic driver and indeed a moral obligation for the industry. If recent global events over in Europe teach us anything, and if we really prioritize the recent increase in attention on ESG, we should all acknowledge that it's not just about who we give money to, but it's also about who we take money from. And if we acknowledge that as an industry, I think we'll all recognize we have a critical moral and ethical obligation to conduct the most rigorous, robust, and efficient KYC processes up front and then on a recurring basis, not just because it reduces operational risk to ourselves, but because it might just create a better world. And with that, I hand over to Lizzie, who's going to provide a demonstration of Appian's connected KYC platform, if you're all still awake.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you. Wow, what an inspirational way to end. And now we're just into software again, but that's okay. Hey everyone, I'm Lizzie Rubenfield. I am a senior product manager in our engineering department, and I've been working on our connected financial services suite for the last couple of years. We started out with our connected onboarding solution, moved over to our servicing solution, and it just made natural sense to then move over into our connected KYC solution. And so I'm excited today to give you a little taste of that. It's hopefully going to get you guys excited as to make a better world, as Sam put it. And we're really excited to show you what we have here. But first, I'm just going to re-highlight some of the KYC specific challenges that Sam laid out for us. So first, we have the increasing cost of compliance. It's no longer you can't just throw additional bodies at this process. And we need to ensure that our software is making sure that we're keeping a cost-conscious state of mind in order to make this process easy. Next, we have the next challenge of integrating AML and KYC into the full customer service model. And lastly, that accessing of quality data, which is so, so important. So I'm going to take you through each of these challenges and show you how our KYC features address each and every one of these and give you a quick taste of what the solution actually looks like. So first, I'm going to dig into the increasing cost of compliance. And we're doing this and addressing this issue in multiple ways. And the first one that I wanted to talk about was the configurable KYC processes. We've taken the complex rules and processes and document checklists and all of that good stuff and handed it over to the people who know how to do this best, the compliance team. We're pulling this forward so we can allow the users who know the process best in order to manage this themselves. And this also gives them the ability to act quickly. Sam recently mentioned the current events going on in Ukraine, and with a tool such as our configurable KYC processes, it's just a few clicks to get those additional rules right into the process. The next one is increasing that compliance officer focus. We heard from Sam as well saying that a lot of the compliance officer's job is really running around the firm, trying to dig through emails, playing the game of, do you have this document? Do I have this document? And instead, we're really centralizing that around the KYC compliance officer having the ability to actually see everything that he or she needs in order to do their actual job. So that's pretty exciting, even though it may not sound like it, but not having to play the game of let's dig through the emails, I think is a good one. So next, I'm just going to show a quick video of what I talked about first, that configurable KYC process,
and just kind of narrate it as it goes through. So here's our settings page. This would essentially be for a power user, a KYC compliance team member who knows the process and is able to fully control that. And what you're going to be seeing on the board here is just a way to create those building block questions and determine what happens for each of those answers. So what you're seeing is a dynamic questionnaire being created. We can completely control the risk score of what's going to happen if this customer says yes to this. We can also control the risk score of what happens if the customer says no. We can say, you know what, if this hits, we're going to need manual review. And again, this is focusing the compliance officer on the correct investigations that we want them to be watching. We can also add additional tasks for a specific answer and require additional documents. So you can see how flexible and how powerful you can create and make sure that all the documents you need are being collected and all of the tasks you need to be are being done based on one simple answer to a question. And so that is really the building block, and then it goes even one step further in our product. Once you create your questions, you can then determine the relationships between these questions by creating rules. And so Sam had mentioned that a couple of times of keeping together these rules and making sure that they're codified, and what we have here is just that ability to create these rules and really hone in on the relationships between those questions. We also have the ability to tag these rules with different codes. Your company can completely determine however they want to set those up and tag them as anti-money laundering. And then what's going to happen is the system is going to tag that and determine on the back end, which customers have said yes to this question, which customers had said no. And you can start reporting on all of that data around what customers have answered yes or no. So you'll see on the screen here, I'm just determining some of the relationships between questions, and you can get really complex to determine essentially if additional questions should be asked and additional risk scores need to be increased, and have that all here. And once you've built these building blocks, which are super powerful and flexible, you can then move those into your main workflow. And that's how you can then control your process in a quick and efficient way by the people who actually know the process themselves. And so I believe that's the end of this one. And so we're gonna now check out the next challenge that Sam had highlighted. We have integrating the AML and KYC into the service model. And what this is really just ensuring that KYC is treated as part of the true customer journey. I heard yesterday, I won't name this customer, but they described it as a hot potato process or a tag you're it, and you don't want to be the person who is it. And so making this true and part of the entire life cycle and thinking about this as just another piece of the event is really what we're trying to do here. So with continuous monitoring, any sort of data changes are going to be highlighted, and users can then decide whether to start another investigation or just simply dismiss that. But it's fully configurable and able to be determined by those end users. And then next, we're centering everything around the customer dashboard, meaning it's a top-down view of exactly what those customers have. Do you have multiple investigations? Do you have additional onboardings and additional servicing requests? Everything is treated in the same, all under that same customer record. I'm just going to show a quick video of how a data change has come up and shown the alert here, and the users can easily determine whether or not a KYC investigation is needed and one is automatically created, or if they want to dismiss this saying we don't need to actually do this, and we can start getting data and reporting based on the reasons that we no longer need this KYC. I'm already on the yellow light, so I'm actually going to skip ahead on this video, and we can touch base on this later. But lastly, I want to address, I think, the most exciting, but potentially the most boring part of this is accessing quality data. When you have good data, it just reduces risk and reduces errors. And so what we've done throughout this entire process is try to make Appian the easiest and most central way to actually have your users look at a centralized record, whether that be for documents, which are a big piece of data within this entire process, or the data itself. So we've created some key integration connections with leading data providers in order to make this as simple as possible and really get that source of truth data into Appian without having your users have to change and swivel over to the next system that they need to pull the data from. This just will reduce errors and, again, reduce that risk, which is the real goal here. I have another video that we're skipping, but again, find me later. I will be able to play it. And then, okay, I just want to wrap up really quickly and say thank you guys for coming. I know I might not be the most exciting after Sugar Ray last night, but hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. And thank you so much for coming. Ask your AEs about looking for a full demo. Reach out to myself, Laura, Sam, or Matt after this if you have any questions. And thank you guys so much for coming to Appian World. It was great to meet everyone in person. And one more plug to rate the session, 5 stars only. Thanks for coming, guys.